Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, March 20th, and I will never stop saying it. Well, I will eventually, but at this time of year, I'm going to remind you that we're almost at the end of Q1. And if you have not yet done enough activity to close enough business to be almost 1/3 of the way to your, I'm sorry, 1/4, nope, 1/3 of the way. Sorry, 1/4 of the way. Wow, it's Friday. If you're not already 1/4 of the way to hitting your goal for the year, now's the time to get very busy. What you don't want to do is wait till Q4 and then call on a guy like me and say, Jeff, I need your help. What can we do? I'm not going to hit quota. Well, by my friends, at that point, it's too late. So get busy now. Increase your prospecting. Talk to your manager if you've got one. Buckle down, get a coach if you need one, but do whatever you have to do. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to the Sales Pro Network. If you haven't joined us before, I am a sales coach and trainer, and I work with both individuals and organizations, both professional salespeople and accidental sellers, to help them increase their sales. And if you have joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or more usually, typically, I do a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And while typically at this point, I say, and today is no exception, except our guest hasn't shown up yet. So I'm going to tap dance for maybe a minute or two here. And if he doesn't show up, we'll maybe reschedule, because I certainly want to talk to this gentleman. Who knows if he's having some technical issues or not. Stuff happens. At any rate, one of the most important things that I'm impressing on everybody on a daily basis, and certainly at this time of year, but at all times of year, is the need for consistent and effective prospecting. As someone who sells sales training to corporations and others, I speak to presidents and vice presidents of sales, presidents of companies, vice presidents of sales, CEOs, to talk to them about me training their team and helping them increase their sales. And as an expert in the world of sales, they ask me a lot of questions about increasing sales, because they know as an outside consultant and as an outside vendor, I'm not going to give them one way or the other. I have no agenda to push other than I'd love to work with them. So I'm not going to blow smoke up their rear ends. And I can tell you this for a fact. 50% of the time, the questions I get asked about how to increase sales, the answer is tell your salespeople to get more appointments with decision makers. The number one challenge I see with almost every coaching client that comes to me and every organization that I work with is people are simply not meeting with enough prospects. And it doesn't matter how good you are at selling. You could be an expert with 50 years of experience. That's me. But if you're not speaking to enough people, you can't close enough business unless you believe in luck. And luck, my friends, is certainly not a great strategy for winning business and making sure that you achieve your goals and exceed them and make enough money to take care of you and your family if you've got one, not only to take care of them, but to thrive. So now is the time to get incredibly busy. Now is the time to make sure that you're doing everything you need to do. And I see why our guest isn't here. He claims he doesn't have the link on the invite. Okay, give me a second so I can find the link for him, and I will send it to him, and hopefully he will join us shortly. Give me just 1 second here. My apologies for the delay, guys. And hopefully I'm sending the link to the guest. Well, I know I am sending it. Hopefully he'll have it in a minute and will join us. So I'll keep dancing. Oh, there he is. Apparently the guest found the link that he was looking for. And
I'm so sorry.
And said, I will introduce him to you. Today's guest is a sales coach and consultant. He's the founder of Adapted Growth, which is a sales coaching firm. He's the host of the Founders Growth podcast and the author of a book that I can't wait to hear about, Selling from Scratch, How to Sell More by Simply Being Human. Please welcome today's guest, John Hill, or as he likes to be called, John Small Mountain Hill. And John, before you say hello, I have to tell you how dopey I sometimes feel. Every time I looked at your name, John Small Mountain Hill, I said, oh, when I interview him, I've got to ask him why he calls himself Small Mountain. And this morning, as I'm looking at him, I'm going, Small Mountain Hill. Oh, Jesus. Sometimes it's painfully obvious. So good morning, John Hill.
Good morning. I apologize for being late. I did not see the link in that email, and I'm like scrambling, trying to find it. So sorry. My fault. Apologies.
Oh, and I was just tap dancing because I shut down my email so that it doesn't, give me any alerts or make any noise while we're having.
Yeah.
So I had to open it back up, and then I saw your email. I said, "Wait a minute! I sent it to him in the first email, and then I copied it." You now have another link, but here we are, John. Before I get to the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, can you give us the 1 or 2 minute version of your background, what brought you up to this point?
Yeah. So I'm this introverted guy who was never really supposed to be in sales, and I liked communicating for my money, but I got really tired of waiting tables. I hated going into work on Friday night when no one else was going to be off. So I took a job as kind of like a customer service rep for T-Mobile, and like my first week there, 3 of the sales guys quit, and so the manager was like, "Okay, we're going to put you in sales," and I'm like, I do not want to be in sales, and he's like, "You're gonna make a bunch of money." And one of the guys, this guy named John Lopez, still friends with him, he's like, "You're gonna be fine, man," and so he helped me out. But I spent the first 10 years in sales, like coming and going, because I got tired of some of the mentality, some of the thinking, some of the things that people were doing to try to hit goals and everything. So I would leave, but then I would like the money and I would come back. And I actually took a stint as a poker player because I was so fed up with sales roles and hidden sales roles. And I just decided I was going to go figure out something else to do, and then found my way back to sales. And then I got a really cool opportunity from a friend of mine to go sell in the field. I was selling spinal implants and cadaveric tissues and things that go in the spinal column. And it was really cool, and very quickly realized how much I didn't know about selling. And so struggled for a while, and then another friend of mine was nice enough to introduce me to a sales coach. And at first I was so resistant. I was just like everybody that I talk to now. I don't need more, or I don't need any coaching. I just need more leads. And then I had a conversation with this coach, and one conversation, he showed me how far off the mark I was. So I go back to my boss and I was like, "Hey, there's this cool coach." And he was like, "No, I don't think so. I think you just need to keep knocking on doors." And this was a friend of mine, and I felt like I was failing, and so I decided that I was going to quit and go find something else to do, even if that meant just waiting tables at 2 places, because, I had a kid and daycare is expensive. And then the other guy says, "Hey, I've just been waiting for you to decide you don't want to do that. You want to come launch this business with me?" And I was like, "Man, that's like super nice of you, but without this training, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it done." And he goes, "That's the whole reason we're talking about it. I know you'll like take the training deep and figure it out. You want to come do it or not?" And that was like the beginning of my fully on the developmental path. I call it now bringing my whole self to work. Because I wasn't that I was opposed to like trying in sales. I just kind of had this thing that like some other job would be worth my whole focus and attention, and I was just waiting for that job to happen, as opposed to bringing that thinking to this job that I was already in. And so worked with a coach for probably 8 years, and then worked with that business partner. We were doing affordable websites, had to learn a lot about selling based upon being how you're different and not just like making pitches and closing deals, because it's very small business. We needed a lot of alignment. And that's where I started to kind of unwind some of the corporate training and some of the jaded mentality, and made this shift. And then I started this business in 2018 just as a CRM consultant. I didn't want to be a trainer or a coach or do any of the things that I'm doing now. I just wanted to help people with CRMs, because CRM was the mirror for me that proved to me like I couldn't hide anymore, right? Like you're either performing or you're not. But how I use a CRM is kind of tied to how I sell and how I think about the role and, the importance of it. And so during COVID, we started to do placements. We started to do training. I wrote a book, came up with a methodology that I call Sherpa, which is all about selling as a guide. And yeah, fast forward, we're 7.5 years into this thing, and have helped a lot of founders bring on salespeople, have helped a lot of teams grow with reduced friction, and helping a lot of teams remove the fighting between marketing and sales, because it doesn't really need to be there.
Wow. So wait, did you actually went to work with the sales coach?
There was a lot of discussion about it, actually, because when there's knowledge I want, it's just easier for everyone to like get out of the way and give it to me. And so when I when I was in that class, I was taking it so seriously, and I was like studying. I was reading all the books. I'm listening to all the podcasts. I'm going to the summit every year, taking as deep as I possibly can. And my coach at one point was like, "Hey, do you want to buy this from me?" Right? He was getting close to retirement. And it was a franchise, and I knew I didn't want to be part of a franchise, because I had aspirations of writing and coming up with ideas and some of my own thinking, and I didn't want a bigger brand to like own all of that stuff. And so
Sure.
I also had some head trash, if I'm being really honest about it. I didn't think I was going to be any good as a coach, right? I was just kind of this technical introverted guy who's found his way in sales, but I'm not really the example that most other people should be following. And so I was kind of resistant to it. And then, during COVID, right, a lot of salespeople got laid off, they're furloughed, they can't travel, there's no events, there's no networking. And so I started to try to place people in remote roles. And someone asked me, if I was going to coach and train this person as well. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to go figure that out because I know how I do it, but I don't really know that that's going to be coherent for someone else. And he was like, if you can figure out how to train someone how to sell the way that you sold me, I'm down. And I'm like, I'm not really a big hunter type. And he was like, I don't need that. I need someone who's going to bring in the right deals. And I was like, okay, I can help you with that. So that's where this whole thing started.
Yeah. Now, when we first met, you told me that you used to be an introvert, and you just said it again,
Mm-hmm.
and that you had a stuttering challenge. And those are two things that typically people would not associate with success in sales.
Yeah.
Typically, people think that in order to be successful in sales, you've got to be incredibly articulate. And obviously, you've got to be able to put a sentence together at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have to be the life of the party with a huge outgoing personality.
Mm-hmm.
And many salespeople do have that, but you don't have to be an extrovert like me. I am an extrovert, but you
Yes,
don't
you're
have
very
to be
much an extrovert. Yeah.
I definitely am. But you don't have to be an extrovert clearly
You
to
do
be
not.
successful in sales, right?
You do not. Like, it's one of the biggest misconceptions, right? And there's a lot of misconceptions about sales and hiring and doing it the right way and everything else like that. But I'm still an introvert. I just play an extrovert on Zoom throughout the workday. But as soon as the workday is done, I'm turning these lights off. I'm taking notes. I'm getting into systems. I'm really working to recharge my battery because at the end of the day, it's about awareness, right? It's about knowing that I'm taxing this battery whenever I'm out doing my job and, networking with people or speaking on stage or doing stuff like this. And so then meaningfully on my time out of work, recharging that battery, right? Working on big, huge, hard puzzles that challenge me and keep me fulfilled and keep me trying to improve. And so then that washes over into my work lane. But you do not have to be an extrovert. You do need to have some goal orientation. You do need to kind of know why you're doing the job, and it can't just be for money. And when you're aligned with all of that stuff, I think anybody can sell. You just need the right environment, the right product, and the right leadership.
I completely agree. And when I said I'm an extrovert, the truth is these days, for most of my life I was, but now I'm what I would call an extrovert/introvert, because just like you, when the day is over, I'm out. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I want to be left alone. I hang out with my dog because all day long I'm dealing with human beings, and it takes a lot of energy to do that properly.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when the phone rings at night, it's like, who the F is calling me now? I've been talking to people all day long. I just want to be left alone. So,
Yes.
okay, so you don't have to be an extrovert, though, to be successful in sales. I mean, I've worked with lots and lots of introverts, but how do our personalities affect or impact our sales performance?
Oh man, it's way deeper than people want to make it out to be. And that was kind of the first, I guess, crack in the armor. Because first thing my coach did with me was a personality assessment, and I actually argued with my business partner. I was like, "Hey, I don't need this to like sell with you, right? And to do this thing." And he goes, "Cool. If you're not willing to do this, we're not going to work together." And I was like, "Okay, man, it's your money." So I went and did the personality assessment, and the assessment being used and the one I still use with all my clients is DISC, and I came back as a very high C. And so my coach had never, ever, 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 ever worked with a high C and gotten them to any form of sales success. So he's going over my results with me, and he's trying to talk me out of it. He's like, John, maybe you go back to school and you become a developer. Maybe you go be a CPA. Maybe you go be one of these very C-oriented jobs. And I'm having this like very different experience because like I'm sitting across from him, and I'm having this moment of I can't be the only person who has these frictions in being in sales, right? These frustrations of it. And then I also realized, like looking at that piece of paper, because during this whole time I'm like training in martial arts, right? So I'm an assistant instructor at a school. I've been teaching people for years, and I'm very familiar whenever I connect with someone versus when I don't connect with someone. And some of it just comes down to learning style and communication style. And so I'm looking at this piece of paper and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just trying to learn from people that don't have anything for me, right? It's not that they're bad at their job or, they don't know what they're doing or anything. They just don't know how to teach someone like me. But if I find people like me, I'll be able to find people that I can learn from. And so kind of in that similar mode, I just decided, okay, like this is out here. I can figure this out. Like I'm not built for it, but I can go figure this out. Watch this. And then it was just podcasts and books. And, I became that developmentally focused CrossFitter, if you will. Like I can't stop talking about it. I'm reading all the books, doing all the things. And it helped, right? I'm a radically different person, 13 years later because of deciding to bring my whole self to work, deciding to really understand who I am, why I have these frictions and frustrations, why certain things are easy for me and why certain things are difficult. So it runs much deeper than anybody thinks that it does, right? Because like most people are just kind of running around on like autopilot for good reason, because it saves our processing power, our brain power for the big decisions, right? But that can mean, I talk to the founders all the time and they're just so convinced that tomorrow they're going to start doing their outreach and tomorrow they're going to start asking for business, right? And then tomorrow comes and something shows up and it's more in tune with their preferences. And then they just keep procrastinating on it and they end up like losing the thread and then having to shut it down and go back to work for someone else. So it's very, very, very deep.
It's funny. The more I researched you, the more I was like, we're like two brains in two different bodies, but we say the same things, even though we've got two different personalities. My post today on LinkedIn is all about exactly what you just said. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll get going. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but for those who aren't familiar with the DISC profile, could you just quickly explain what the DISC stands for, why you're
Yes,
By the way,
sure.
You want to take a wild guess as to what I am?
Oh, I'm gonna assume like they had to build the I box bigger for you, right?
I'm
They
actually
had
a
to
high D.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Fascinating. You're doing a good job of adapting for the role, though. Good for you.
Well, because dominance doesn't really work in sales.
That's true.
I actually, and I tell this to people that I'm training all the time. I actually dial myself back a bit when I'm speaking to prospects because when I'm selling training, I'm still talking to a president, a CEO, or a VP of sales, and these are typically high D people often, but they know that when I walk in, not only am I there to sell them something, but I'm an expert at sales, which is the only reason they would talk to me to train their team. So they're pretty much shut down. So I kind of have to dial my personality back a little so I don't overwhelm them. But could you please quickly go through what the DISC stands for?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the ask, actually. I talk about this stuff so much I forget about the curse of knowledge, So D stands for dominance, I stands for influential, S stands for steady, and C stands for conscientiousness, right? So the way that I think about it is D's want to win, I's want to be the center of the spotlight, S's want everyone to get along together harmoniously without any conflict, and C's just want to think about logic and no emotions, right? So about as close to Dr. Spock from Star Trek as you can possibly get.
I got it, man. I got it.
Yeah.
So now, some people seem to be natural born salespeople, and I'm accused of that all the time. I do believe there are certain traits that you can be born with that make you tend to be more successful in sales, but they certainly don't guarantee it. And just because you don't have some of them, it doesn't mean you can't be successful in sales.
100%.
Others who don't seem to be born with it, they don't seem to come by it naturally. And at one point, you switch from B2C sales to the B2B medical sales. What happened when you made that switch?
Oh, well, my philosophy at the time, right? I heard this radio commercial way back in the day. Like I was working at my very first job. It was Old Navy. I was seasonal help, right? This is like in '99. And there was this Home Depot commercial, right? And this guy is on the commercial, and the thing that he says is, my sales philosophy is I'm going to know it so well, you're going to feel comfortable buying it from me. And I was like, I can appreciate this, right? Very high level C territory, as much knowledge as possible. And so that was just kind of my thing. I'm going to know it. I'm going to know it inside and out, and then I'm going to help you, Well, selling to surgeons, I don't know more about it than they do. They've been in school and all these programs and everything else. And now they're used to being the commanding presence in the room. And it was so glaring just how hard of a job that it was. Right now, let's also call into play that these guys get called on by everybody. There's pharma reps, there's hardware reps, right? There's a constant flood of people coming in and out of these offices, right? And so me not being super aware of myself yet, feeling all this discomfort, like there were times I would pull up in front of a doctor's office and I'm just like so filled with the rejection because I'm taking it too personally. I'm wearing it. And I remember pulling up in front of an office and just feeling this moment of like, you know what? I'm gonna go in there in a minute. but I really need to reorganize these apps on my home screen, right? It just felt so vitally important, you know? I'm just avoiding the rejection, but I'm not even being honest with myself about it. So honestly the probably toughest part of my entire career, right? Because up until that point, I've been, moderately successful just by showing up and figuring it out. And this is the first time that I'm like, I don't know even what it looks like to get good at this stuff, you know? And so I just kind of felt tetherless and just kind of like scrambling. And I have a brand new kid, she's in daycare, and it was very, very tough. I'd taken a pay cut because before this I was working in banking, so I had all these really cool licenses and I could sell mortgages and investments, and I had all these things, and I kind of got frustrated with banking because everybody kept getting sold the same products that paid out the most. And I just done all this training about fiduciary responsibility. So it seemed very odd that everyone is getting this very expensive vehicle for their investments. And I was like, okay, like I wanted to work in that space because I thought that all the compliance and everything would force everyone to do the ethical right thing. And that was not the case. And so I was frustrated, and I was just talking with a friend of mine from my martial arts school. And he's like, well, I got a spot, but you're gonna take a pay cut. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, how long? Right. And I asked the wrong question, right? I'm a big fan on asking the right question. And so I asked this guy, I said, hey, how long until you went on commission? Right. Because he had this thing, you get a base until you go on commission. Once you go on commission, you eat what you kill. And he goes, 3 months. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I could take a pay cut for 3 months. I should have asked the better question of like, hey, what is the average for a rep to go on commission? And he would have been honest with me and told me that it was 18 months. Okay. What I was not taking into consideration was that this guy who was my boss and my friend had 18 years of being a chiropractor behind him. So he already had some alphabet soup after his name. He already had relationships with doctors and everything. He was able to just kind of walk in and get the business a lot quicker. Since I asked the wrong question, I set myself up for very unaligned expectations,
Mhm.
And so in the fourth month, I'm terrified that I'm going to get cut, that this isn't working, and I don't know what is going to happen and everything. And he's fine, right? He's expecting a year and a half ramp up time and stuff like that because he knows what's common in the space. And I'm just so uncomfortable. Like I'm just feeling like I'm failing. I feel like it was so rough, because I just didn't know enough, right? And I didn't know myself enough to even find my way out of the misery I was in.
Yeah. You said something. I mean, you keep saying things that strike me, and it's that you could have all the knowledge in the world about your product or your service. You can even have all the knowledge in the world about the type of customer you're going after and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
that's not really what sells. And I believe we're in 100% alignment because you've said it more than once. Sales is really all about the questions you ask. It's not about your
100%.
presentation skills. It's not about your closing skills. It's not about the word I hate, pitch. It's really about being curious. And
Mhm.
when you come in arrogant, I know everything about this product. Here's why you should have it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I don't think there's any type of customer, but certainly not surgeons and people like that who do think they're gods and are used to dominating the room. They're not going to buy it. But salespeople simply, I often like to say that sales is not rocket science. And I like to say that because my oldest daughter's a rocket scientist. Like literally, she's an aerospace engineer, but you don't
I
have to
love
be
that.
like her to do sales. You just have to be curious enough to ask the right questions.
Mhm.
I think that's where sales actually get made. And you can, I really did keep reading stuff that you're posting about. Are we one brain in two heads? Is that it? About a week ago, you posted and used a term that I use all the time, accidental salesperson.
Mm,
How do
mhm.
you define accidental salesperson and what are their specific challenges?
Well, so what the people that I like working with the most, right, are the founders, right? Because most of them are subject matter experts. They get to a level of knowledge and credibility and experience. And then for whatever reason, they decide to go out on their own. Now we only hear about like the Zuckerbergs and, all these young people and the unicorns and everything else like this. But a lot of these people are, in their 30s, oftentimes late 30s, 40s when they're going out for the very first time and hanging their shingle. And if you're used to being a subject matter expert, like kind of to the example of your daughter, like you just come in expecting to be heard, expecting to be trusted, expecting people to just kind of like do whatever you want them to do. And if you show up with that kind of energy, it's not going to go very well for you in a sales role, right? And so a lot of founders don't have any background in marketing or sales, and some of them have kind of a negative connotation about, selling, because they're just looking at the bad examples of it. But if you're not selling your services or product as a founder, you have to go back to work for someone else, right? Like I love all the stuff about, if you build a cool enough product, people will show up for it, but that never works on a timeline that meets reality. So we have to go out, we have to market, we have to sell, we got to put ourselves out there in a meaningful way. And it's so funny because most of the founders I know are so excited to get out of the sales seat because they start telling themselves, I'm not enough, right? I can't, I can't close these deals. I keep dealing with these problems and everything. And so I need someone who can make them say yes, right? And then the minute they start thinking about it that way, they're way off base, right? And then they start looking for that kind of glint in the eye, the urgency, can we get a killer in here, a sales savage and all this stuff? And it's like, if you're selling timeshares or cars or phones or something else like that, then okay. But in B2B, it doesn't work that way, right? Like I remember going in one time to this one doctor's office and I gave him my card and she goes, oh, okay. So she takes my card and she spins this book around and is looking through the book. And I was like, okay, can I ask what's the book about? I just can't help myself. And she goes, oh, well, this is the people that like we will never do business with.
Oh,
and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, you would not believe some of the people that come in here and just start demanding all these things, or people just try to walk through the door and try to walk into the back and stuff like that. So we have a list of people that we will never, ever, ever do business with, even if it's a new rep, because if the company is thinking that this is okay, we want no part of it.
so she was checking to see if your company was already in there? Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
absolutely. Right. And I'm floored by this, right? Because like I was always told, like, just keep pushing. And when I would have questions, I'd become the problem child because I'd be like, hey, it says no soliciting on the door. Are we supposed to go in here? Like, does this make a lot of sense? Should we just keep looking? And people would be like, John, that sign's not for you, blah, 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 and all this stuff that salespeople push on each other and everything. And then after seeing that, I was like, nope, there's definitely some trade-offs to just going around and being a bulldozer and thinking you can push people around and stuff. And so, it's easy to overdo it. It's easy to think you're not enough. It's easy to not even understand the volume necessary to get into motion, right? Because I'll talk with people, and this is more of the entrepreneur people, right? They'll go talk to 3 people when a deal doesn't close. They're like, this isn't it, right? Sales is dead. Let me go build a funnel. Let me go build something else. Let me go do something else, because it should be easier than this.
Let me sell a different product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's what's going to do it.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, they don't know how to lead a call. They don't know how to ask the qualifying questions. They don't know how to like unlock the real opportunity. They don't know how to make the actual connection. They don't know any of these things. And so then what they start thinking about, and I talk about this with everybody, they start doing the math wrong. Okay. So what they do is they look at their close rate and they say, okay, we close this number. So if we want to close this amount, we just need to flood with this many proposals. So how do we build an engine that makes it real easy for us to kick out proposals and just like carpet bomb the land with them? And it's like, you're going the wrong way, but a lot of people get very set in those ways, right? And there's a lot of people that push the volume only mentality in selling, right? They're typically not having sales conversations, right? But unfortunately, that's a very loud voice in our space. It's a mix of volume as well as quality. And if you're not thinking about the even weight of this, you're probably lopsided. You're probably spraying and praying, or you're probably over-indexing on, oh my God, what can I say to make them say yes? You're supposed to be seeing if they want what you do and the things that you provide, not trying to get them to say yes to like anything you can think of. That's bad selling. So people get stuck with it. And so I like helping those people try to understand that you're going to have to do more volume than you think, because there are going to be drop-offs here. Doing more volume doesn't mean that you're bad at it, but going volume only is probably going to lead you down a path of, failure just as handily as not doing enough volume, right? There's a sweet spot.
Yeah, and that whole philosophy, let's hire killers who know how to get people to say yes, it's just wrong. Look, obviously, when we're selling, we want people to say yes. But if anybody thinks that we can force somebody into saying yes to something they don't want, don't need, or can't afford, they're wrong. Or unless you're willing to lie, cheat, or steal, which I'm certainly not. But that's not the game. I think part of the way to be successful in sales is learning to love no. And while I don't love it as much as I love yes, I do love it. What I hate is anything other than yes or no.
Oh
I
yeah.
believe let's make it very easy for people to say yes and agree to do business with you. And just as like really almost as easy to say no. I'm not here to fight with anybody. I'm
Oh
not saying
yeah.
when somebody initially says no that I just go, okay, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Call me if you ever need me. I'm going to continue the discussion if I believe there's still a discussion to have. But
Yep.
there is a time when it's like, okay, got it. Because to
Yes.
me, no means no today might mean yes tomorrow or 5 years from now. And I've certainly have people who I've met 5, 7 years ago who call me on a no and go, yeah, we met 7 years ago. I'm ready for you now. Because you
Yep.
constantly have to be planting seeds. But so many salespeople get freaked out with the no. Again, I don't love it. I certainly prefer yes. But look, you and I are expert at sales. I don't know what your closing ratio is, and I sell a couple of different services. But when it comes to sales training, 42% say yes. Now, that's a pretty high number. But
It's a
that
great
still
number.
means, as expert as I am at selling, 58% of the people I speak will, more than half, say no.
Yeah.
And that's okay with me because I know what my numbers are. I know about half the people I meet with are going to say yes. So I've got to meet twice as many people as I need to hit
Yep.
whatever quota I set for myself. Yes?
100%. And here's the other part of this, right? And this might get a little spicy. I'm not as persuasive as a lot of other people are, right? Like as a C, I'm kind of colder. Like this is effort to come out and be open and, just really lay it all out. It's just not in line with my personality. So I'm not very persuasive, right? So I need to generate more pipelines. So that way I can have the closing that I need, but I don't beat myself up about it, right? So many people get hung up on like close rate. Okay. There's a lot of variables that go into close rate. What does your marketing look like? What does your education look like? What does your pre-qualification look like? Right? If it's everybody with a wallet and a pulse, right? It's probably going to be a really bad close rate. And you're probably going to have a bunch of churn anyway, So, for years I'd be like, how do I get my close rate up? How do I get my close rate up? Like, I don't want to force people into a thing that doesn't make any sense for them, right?
You
And
can't.
if we don't have this connection, I'd rather just put it down, you know? But to your point, that whole idea of, it took me a long time and my coach was always talking about it. No is better than a maybe. No is better than a maybe. And I was very resistant to this idea, but the way that I think about it now is like every maybe is an open loop. You got to go back and you got to go back and you got to go back and they're going to forget the details. And then you're having to re-educate and revalidate why you're there and everything. And a lot of times they're just being too polite to be honest with you. Right. It's so interesting because like whenever I first learned about DISC and personalities and everything, I kind of didn't like D types. I was like, oh, those are those guys. Oh, okay. And most people do this. But then after enough time, there's a bit of a shift because once you realize that Ds aren't really just trying to kind of run you over, they just don't care enough about your feelings to lie to you. They become the best people to try to sell to because you're not gonna obfuscate me. You're not gonna smoke screen me. You're not gonna do any of these things. If this is not something that you're interested in, you're just telling me to get the hell out of your office. I just got to be thick-skinned enough to be able to hear that, accept it, and go find someone else to talk to.
Exactly right. You use the term that I think should be emblazoned on the inside of every salesperson's eyeballs: more pipeline.
More pipeline, yeah.
Filling your pipeline with appointments and opportunities is the one thing that's almost guaranteed to give you success. You could literally suck at selling. Excuse me. You could suck at selling, but if you're seeing enough people, somebody's going to buy eventually. That's
Exactly
not a
right.
recipe for huge success. I mean, but the first thing is always you got to be seeing enough people.
Mhm.
And that's the number one challenge I see in every coaching client, every organization I run into. You used another word that I will push back on a little: persuasive. I don't believe personally that sales is about persuading or convincing or talking people into things, which is the typical sales training philosophy in most books and most trainers thing. To me, sales is simply a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you.
I agree.
I often say, and I take it back, that I don't really sell. I do sell. I'm a salesperson. I'm proud to be one, and I'm proud of what I do. But really, when I say I don't sell, what I really mean is I'm not the typical high pressure salesperson who's there to convince or persuade. All I do is have enough great conversations so that enough people say, sounds good, Jeff, sign me up. Sounds good, Jeff, I need what you've got. Because look, I'm an old guy. I've been doing this a long time. I was married for 10 years. I don't need any more uphill battles. I'm not looking for it. I'm looking to find enough people. What I look for in all my marketing is people who are raising their hand.
Oh,
I love
exactly.
teaching people how to cold call, and I believe it still works if you do it well. I don't
Agreed.
want to do it. I'm doing marketing that gets people to come to me and say, hey, you know what? Like, I've been
Mhm.
following you on LinkedIn for the last year. I really like what you're saying. Can we talk about your coaching program, whatever that is?
Oh,
To
yeah,
me, that's the key.
for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
And
when I talk about being persuasive, right? Like there are like those I types, those gregarious, outgoing people that always have a crowd and just always kind of win people over and stuff. That's what I'm talking about being persuasive, right? Like what a lot of people get caught up in, right, is they start saying things like, well, sales is all about manipulation. Okay, if you're doing it badly, then yes, right, you're trying to manipulate people. Okay, we are trying to persuade them to be open and honest enough with us so that way after one conversation we know if this opportunity has legs or not. Okay, and if you don't lean into a little bit of like, okay, persuasion, how can I build some trust so that way this person will be honest with me, you're going to run in, you're creating all the maybes, you're creating all the bad follow-up that everybody hates and everyone thinks is now super important, 17 touches in your follow-up sequence and all of this other stuff. And it's like, if we'd had a better conversation in the first conversation, we could have found the no, we could have gotten past this, maybe we could have figured out what they might have said yes to. If we can get the no from them, it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. But if you just show up and you're like, okay, I'm not leaving without a yes, you're screwed, right? You're just fundamentally going to be not probably getting the business and hating your life and taking it all and wearing it all very personally and everything. So it's not I'm trying to persuade you to a yes. I'm trying to persuade you so that way you drop the shields and we have the real conversation so we can both leave here knowing if this warrants more of our time or not.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why would I want to meet with somebody 3, 4, 5 times, whether it's on Zoom or I have to get in my car and drive someplace, only to
Yeah,
find out at that point I didn't have a shot from the start? Like you, I want to find out on the very first meeting, because my first meeting depends on what I'm selling. But when I'm
sure.
talking about sales training with high level people, it typically takes me 8 weeks on average and 3 meetings. Why would I want to wait 8 weeks to find out it was no? I want to find out on that first meeting, and I invest more time in that first meeting than the average salesperson does. Like when I
Oh yeah.
before I worked before I went into business for myself, I worked for a large sales training company,
Hmm.
and the typical rep there had a half-hour first meeting with people, what you call founders and what I call VPs of sales,
Hmm.
people like that. Mine is 90 minutes. I'd rather
Hmm.
invest an hour and a half up front than have
Yeah,
to come back 5 times and waste a lot more time to find out that I didn't have a chance from the start. And I'm
100%.
fine with that. I'm absolutely
100%.
fine. Yeah. So I want to ask you something else, because we
Sure.
kind of touched on this. Emotional intelligence. How does emotional intelligence affect sales?
Man. uh, it's so funny because in my kung fu school we would talk about this thing, right? Everyone shows up to kung fu school because on some level they want to be a badass, okay? But eventually, if you get to any level of proficiency in any martial art, it shifts. It goes away from like, okay, I'm trying to be, blah, the best, to okay, this is just how I think about life, right? And every martial artist, every top tier martial artist isn't going around like looking for fights on the street, right? Because they're very aware of how capable people are, and the packaging doesn't always, line up with the training and the execution and stuff. And so every high level fighter I've ever met is like, okay, cool, man. Like we don't have to do this, right? So whenever I went into sales training, I was kind of going in with this thing of like, okay, I'm here to be the most brass tacks, blah 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 kind of person that I can possibly be.
Killer.
Exactly, right? And my coach was like, "Hey, taking the wrong note," right? And I'm like, "No, man, I'm rah, rah." I was just so fixated on the help that I thought I was looking for versus the help that was being given by my coach, right? Because he's talking about journaling. He's talking about, let's look at your limiting beliefs. Let's look at kind of like how you measure yourself and what does success look like and what are you hearing in the conversation? How do you connect with people? And I'm over here like, I don't want to small talk with people. What's the thing I can say to get them to buy? And over time, I leaned into journaling. I leaned into better conversations. The concept of a pattern interrupt, and these things were like so helpful to me. And then I read Jeb Blunt's book, Sales EQ. Right, phenomenal book. I love all of Jeb Blunt's books
Jeff's great.
personally. And I was it was so funny because I finished that book and I was like, I was kind of mad, Jeff, because like I had this moment of like, well, this would have saved me like 6 years of coaching, And then I realized, like, well, I can only say that because I spent the time in the 6 years of coaching to be able to see it so craftily and lined out in this book, right? But fundamentally, we're all living in our own reality, right? The filters of our senses, right? Our eyes and our ears and our tastes and everything are so specific to ourselves that, when studies are done on this, right? Two people will come together, have a conversation, they leave, and then they're interviewed about the subject of that conversation, and the gaps are just significant. Whenever we were a kid, we'd play this game called telephone, right? And one person whispers in the next person's ear. By the time you get down to the end, it is so radically different, but it doesn't take 15 kids to do that, right? It can be two people, holding their cards too close to their chest, right? Or trying to play it safe, or, trying to keep the salesperson at bay because they're fearful, that they're going to get hypnotized and wake up with a Lamborghini and stuff like this, So EQ is all about noticing that stuff and paying attention to the signs and reading the signs and acting intentionally with the signs that you're being given, and not just, I know exactly what you need, I'm just going to show it to you, and then you're going to shut up and buy because you didn't even know what you needed until they walk. No one wants to be on the other side of that. Not a single person on the planet. But everybody thinks that that's what it takes. So,
Jeffrey Gitomer says people love to buy, they hate to be sold.
Exactly.
And once again, you're speaking, I'm going, it's one brain and two heads. On Wednesday, I was with a coaching client. He's talking about an issue he's having. I taught him how to meditate.
Man.
He was frazzled. And I'm like, how can I've got all these thoughts going on in my head all the time. I don't know what to do. I'm like, let's talk about meditation. Let me teach you how to meditate. And by the end of this, I actually taught him deep breathing. And that's the kind of thing that you need. And it's not always about, here's the tactic that's going to close the deal.
Oh man. First of all, I got goosebumps even talking about this, right? Because I'm a big meditator, try to do it every day. And it's been so helpful with being able to kind of detach from my thoughts and keep my thoughts where I want them. But I will say, it's probably the hardest habit to work on for yourself because, with anything else that we try to go do, you're going to notice and realize improvement fairly quickly, right? I started playing guitar about 3 years ago just to challenge myself and see if I could, right? If I pick it up every day, I'm just getting better. I'm not great, but I'm getting better, right? You sit every day for 7 days, you're probably just going to beat yourself up for thinking too much, as opposed to really just getting to the place. And this takes a long time of you were being a human again, right? You have consciousness, you have thoughts, you have feelings. This is what makes us great. Don't beat yourself up for this thing. Just decide to start again. Just decide to go back to the breath. Decide that you can detach from these things, And so it's such a cool practice. I love talking about it with people, but I also know how hard it is to build because I struggled building a practice for probably 5 or 6 years, right? I do it for a couple of days. I download Headspace, but to be clear, I was doing it because I was hearing that other people were doing it. It was helping them. And I thought that if it would help me, it would make me cool, right? I wasn't doing it for my own, improvement, right? It was kind of this weird, ill-begotten intention around it. And so it had to shift. It had to become something that was going to be meaningful for me. And journaling is the same thing, right? A lot of people are talking about journaling now. I think that that's really important. I think it's just as important as meditation because if you're not looking at how you talk to yourself, you're probably beating the crap out of yourself and not even paying attention to it. But it's one of those things to where it's super easy to be doing it for the wrong reasons and not get the benefit out of it that you're really hoping for. And that's when you got to go back to the studs of okay, what am I doing this? What am I hoping it's going to do for me? And then how do I make this into something that does those things for me? It takes a while, but yeah, meditation is absolutely a game changer. I can't shut up about it. I could talk about it till your ears bleed.
Yeah. And I did take meditation originally to be cool. I took transcendental meditation when I was 20, which is a million years ago, because the Beatles did transcendental meditation, and I wanted to be as cool as the Beatles. And when I trained this guy 2 days ago to meditate, I actually said to him, I said, look, the first time you do it, you're going to sit down and you'll repeat the mantra a few times. And you'll be breathing deeply. And then you're going to go, what should I have for dinner? Don't beat yourself up about it. That's normal. It takes years and years until you can actually get to a space where you're not worried about your grocery list or anything else.
Yep.
Just be with it. Just give yourself time and space. The other thing I had to point out to you is I grew up, with Bruce Lee movies. And it was just oh man, I just want to be able to kick ass like Bruce Lee. But the truth was, I don't want to kick anybody's ass. I really just wanted to be able to protect myself and now my family. And I'm not a martial artist. I almost said it's too late. It's never too late, I guess, but I'm not about, I don't have the commitment and the discipline to start now, but really I don't want to hurt anybody, but I do have the utmost respect for anybody who can defend themselves, because there are some times when you can't run away.
Yeah, like it's so funny because I talk about my martial arts path a lot. It plays a huge part in how I think about the mindset aspect of sales, and mindset in sales has got such weird opinions on it. And some people think that it doesn't matter at all. Other people attribute way too much of sales success to mindset. And I think that it matters. But, Kung Fu in martial arts is where I learned how to be disciplined. It's where I learned how to, stack small wins, and really just kind of try to disconnect from any other expectation other than showing up and being a little bit better, And so when my business partner, the actual word that he said to me was, he goes, hey, that sales is just like Kung Fu. And I was like, shut your mouth. It is not. Like, shut up. Sales is something I do so I can afford to come to Kung Fu. Like, do not try to smash these two things together. And he goes, well, it could be if you wanted it to be. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but sounds like, BS. And he goes, okay. And I'm like, you're not even going to try to talk me into this? Like, what kind of salesperson are you? And he's like, no, you've already decided, And I was like, well, I don't know that I've decided this, I just don't know that it makes a bunch of sense, which is just enough for me to be open for it to kind of percolate around. And then I was like, okay, I'll go meet your coach. But yeah, it's like, I'm a pacifist. I don't want to fight anybody. Like, I like the training. I like the improvement aspects of it. I like the little bitty moments of like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that was a thing. But ultimately it's much more like a philosophy and like a way of living than what people want to make it out to be, that I'm, tight t-shirt guy and walking around trying to kick everyone's ass. That's just not what it is.
Yeah. Gotcha. I want to ask you about your book, but first we have a question.
Sure.
Dolores asked, do you journal in a tablet or on a blank page manually? What do you recommend?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you're in the beginning of this, right, my biggest thing is, and there's so many templates and versions of journaling. There's bullet journaling. There's, everyone has a version of journaling. In my opinion, make the lift easy in the beginning, because building new habits is tough. Okay. And everyone comes to me and they're like, John, how are you so disciplined? I'm actually not that disciplined. Okay. I flex a lot of discipline when I'm building a new habit. And then when it becomes a habit, it just becomes part of me. Right. So in the beginning, make it easy to show up and do a little bit every day. Okay. So if that means going out and getting a template from, bullet journaling or, 1 minute journal or, any one of these other ones, that's okay. But at a bare minimum, you can just sit down. What did I do today? How do I feel about my performance today? Did I do okay? Did I not? Ultimately, I think the best end state is the blank page, because there's room, the constraints of a template are really good for getting into motion, but those constraints are also going to limit how wide the lane is. Okay. So the blank page, my journaling now is mostly just like Socratic, like, okay, how did today go? Right. And sometimes I'll answer the question, sometimes I won't, but it's more important, in my opinion, at this stage now, to just understand that I can ask myself any question. There are no questions out of bounds. Okay. And so how was today? Could it have been better? What would better have looked like? Right. And I'll largely just kind of do like stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness stuff actually came to me through the Artist Way, this book about like unlocking creativity. And my grandmother had given me the book. One of the big practices in there is this concept called morning pages. And morning pages is you just write stream of consciousness. Like, you never take your pen off the paper for about 3 pages. And the process of this is to kind of beat back the inner critic, the thing that shuts down innovation and shuts down creativity. And so my journaling for a while was very templatized. What did I do today? How did I feel about it? What does that mean for tomorrow? Blah, blah, blah. But joining these two things together has been like a massive unlock for me. So I just kind of process through my day again, right? And it's just for me. We have an agreement in my household that no one will read my journals. And it was funny because my daughter was like, okay, but why? And I was like, well, kiddo, because this is just for me. And if I know that like you and mom are going to go in and read it, I might not be as open and as honest with myself in certain aspects of this. And so, it's not that I'm hiding anything from you or anything, but this is just for me. And like later on, when you get a little bit older and you have one of these, it's going to be just for you. I'm never going to read it. right? I want you to have that space,
That's great.
So, and the most important thing is make it easy to be consistent in the early days, right? And usually that means using someone else's template, using someone else's format. But eventually you're going to hit the place to where that templatized version, that formatted version is going to have less and less lift for you. And that's when it's time to take the thing off the shelf and make it the thing that it needs to be for you.
Got it, Dolores. I hope that answered your question. And it's almost spooky for me hearing you talk, because you keep saying stuff that I know I say all the time. You talked about stream of consciousness. I teach something called stream of consciousness brainstorming in my program called the Sales Confidence Lab. And by the way, the entire first week, the first session is all about mindset. But in stream of consciousness brainstorming, I teach people to ask the right questions. And I can't give them the right questions, but we use stream of consciousness brainstorming to come up with the right questions for them.
Oh, man, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great exercise. I wish I invented it. I discovered it online when COVID hit, because keyword then was pivot. Everybody wants to know how you pivot. How do you come up with it? And stream of consciousness brainstorming is a brilliant methodology for pivoting. It helped me. We're starting to run this. Let's leave some time to talk about your book. Go ahead, please.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I talked about poker earlier. Poker is my other really big lens that helps me as a salesperson, right? Because poker is a game of incomplete information. I don't know the cards that you're holding, and so being a coach person, I got a poker coach. And one time, we're talking because he got me some software, right, that functions kind of like a CRM, right? And now I can't hide anymore, because before this, I would lose on Tuesday, I would win on Thursday. Well, I must have just gotten unlucky. Now I can look at every instance of having ace queen over the past week and look at in detail at how I played the hands, right? So I can't hide anymore. And so he goes, I want to let you know, John, you will improve based upon the quality of the questions you ask. And I said, what the hell does that mean? And he goes, sometimes you're going to ask me, how do I win this hand? And my question to you is going to be, why are you in the hand in the first place? And I was so frustrated, right? I'm paying this guy all of $40 an hour to be my poker coach, which was big money for me at the time. And I was like, this is nonsense, man. I'm paying you to help me win pots. And he goes, no, you are paying me to help you become a better poker player. These are different things. And so if you don't ask the right questions, you will not improve as a poker player. And man, talk about being just hit right between the eyes. I'm a rigid person. I can always come up with an excuse, but that just got past every defense I had and hit me square in the head. And it was yeah, right. Because I talk about that with people now, because, oh, John, how do I overcome this objection? What did they tell you the real problem was? Well, John, you don't get it. Okay, well, then you don't have an objection to overcome. You didn't have a deal in the first place.
Yeah. I hate the term overcome objections anyways. My job's not to overcome objections. My job's to talk them through with you if you want to have that conversation, to see if I can help you change your mind or get past it and then do business with me. And if not, it's to shake your hand and say, sorry, it didn't work out this time. Yeah. Who do you know that I should be speaking with? And if you ever change your mind, please give me a call. And then I leave skid marks in their driveway, getting to the next person, because it's all about looking for the people who say yes and making it easy to say no. So I don't waste any time, because when somebody says no, and I know we talked about this earlier, and I'm watching the time, we will have time to talk about your book in a second, but when somebody says no, you no longer have to take up mental energy wondering when's it going to be yes. Because for most salespeople, unless somebody specifically says no, they think, well, of course, when they hear think it over, they think people are actually going to sit and think it over and then call them and, of course, come to the right conclusion, which is to do business with Jeff. How could you possibly meet me and not want to do business with me? But that's not the case. And when somebody actually says no, you don't have to take up that psychic energy, which is thinking, when's it going to be? And that's when you start making the calls. Hey, it's just Jeff following up again. Hey, following up on that proposal. Hey, have you forgotten about me? I'd much rather hear a no, because nature does abhor a vacuum. And when I get rid of that maybe, it gives me space to attract the right type of prospect. I see you're smiling. You want to talk, but I want to hear about your book. Can you tell us a little bit about selling from scratch?
Sure. Yeah. No, to that point, just real quick, right? I call them open loops. Okay. And so every maybe is an open loop, right? It's still an open file, right? And my coach had this line, let's close the file, right? Should we close the file? It was a big part of his language, and I don't think about it as closing the file. I don't use that in my breakup emails or any of this other stuff, but I do think about it in my head that every maybe is an open loop, right? And so that's allocating like memory space to these open loops. I got to remember to follow up. I got to remember to chase them around. I got to remember like, hey, are we still talking about this and everything? I would rather make sure that the loops that are open are for meaningful, important things like my family, my friends, my projects, the opportunities that I'm really excited about. And we can only have so much bandwidth allocated towards these open loops, right? Everything else is going to go towards like basic function. So being able to close the loop is a meaningful thing, right? It reduces anxiety, it increases focus, it helps us perform. And also it just brings a lot of clarity to what this job is, because if you don't know your numbers, to your point earlier, oh, like this job is impossible if you're not working towards being able to benchmark activities to qualify deals to being able to close deals. So
Yeah. I actually do teach people to specifically say, should I close the file? I teach them an entire email, and the subject line is, should I close the file? And it's all in caps with 3 question marks because it gets people's attentions. And it's simply, and because, I'm sure you hear it all the time too. I get ghosted all the time. What do I do when I get ghosted? Well, here's a great way to re-engage somebody. Ask them if they want you to close the file and make it okay for them. I mean, I don't want to waste your time with what I actually say, but it's make it easy for people to say no if they want to. It's fine by me. John, we only have like 4 minutes left. Tell me about your book, please.
Yeah, so wrote the book during COVID. I was doing a morning show with a friend of mine, and we were just kind of trying to do like a Gary Vee thing of just showing up and documenting our journey every day. And I just decided I was going to start writing 1,500 words a day around my thinking of selling and like what's important to me and stuff. And I didn't know if it was going to be a course or a book, but I just did it for like 40 days in a row. And then I had what I was affectionately calling a word baby. And I'm really lucky in the fact I get to work with my wife, and she's my editor. And so I gave it to her and let her read it. Because it was weird. Normally, everything I write, I pass to her and she looks it over and tells me if it's garbage or not. But this thing I was kind of holding closer, And so finally I let her read it. And it was so funny. She came out and she gave me a kiss and she was like, this is absolutely a book, but I'm going to need to work on it for a little bit. And I was like, epic. So we launched the book in 21. And this was kind of before I'd really moved in the coaching, right? So we don't really talk about Sherpa. We don't really talk about coaching, but it's more helpful for people, those accidental salespeople, right? The people that don't understand that you can reverse engineer activities to pipeline, right? And the KPIs are really, really helpful. One of the greatest things about sales roles, if they're built right, is that it is very clear whether or not you're performing or not. You can come up with excuses, you can come up with vanity metrics, you can go talk to everybody on the planet. But at the end of the day, one of the best things about this world of being in sales is I'm either above the line or I'm below the line, right? I'm either above goal or I'm not at goal. But if you don't have goals, it's always just going to be more, right? And so I used to be the guy who was like purposefully looking around for sales roles with no hard quotas, no hard goals and everything, because I wanted that opportunity to hide. And now, it's give me a clear goal and then I'm going to go hit it and then leave me alone after I've hit it, kind of thing, And so it's about planning. It's about understanding the mindset of it. I make this big, bold claim in the introduction that sales is noble whenever you are noble, right? And it's so funny because like I wrote that line and like I remember writing it and having this moment of like, wow, man, we're really planting a flag in the sand here. And I felt a little cheesy about it, but we launched it and we put it out there, and then people started calling me, right? Like friends in my network and people that I'd met, people I shared the book with, and they're like, John, I've never thought about it this way. I've never understood why you like this job, but I just read this line that it's noble when you are. And I just realized that I need to rethink what sales is, and, talk about getting lucky, right? Because like everybody who writes a book is hoping that people will connect with it and that it'll bring people back in their direction. And, mine really works for the right people around this kind of concept, right? It's all about being a human first, because if you get seen as a human first, you'll get treated as a human first. If you show up like a salesperson first, you're going to get treated like a salesperson, right? Another line from my coach is you can lie to a salesperson and not even feel bad about it at church on Sunday, right? Like it's just how people deal with us. But if you can show up and put your humanity forward, right, just by being a human, talk about the no's, make no a very accessible option, you get treated fundamentally very differently. And so I don't want people to like try to put on salesperson armor when they're deciding to go have conversations, right? Because it's just a conversation. Now, the effort to get to the place so somebody can just be just a conversation takes effort and practice. And that's why we have jobs and we get to do the work that we do. But fundamentally, people overthink it and then they blow it because they're trying to be uh, the Wolf of Wall Street, right? Or, the guy from Mad Men or something else like this. And they don't understand that if you just show up and listen and ask really great questions, the people that you're supposed to be working with more or less sell themselves, right? It shouldn't be a big, hard, heroic push to get them across the finish line. So it's really cool. We're talking about doing an updated version of it because it's been a couple of years, but I'm busy working on the second book currently, so haven't really dug too much into that. But it's on Amazon. We did the audio version like here, so I did the audio, which was probably the thing I geek out on the most because I'm a big audiobook fan, and so being able to do my own, and produce it and do the whole thing was like a really cool moment in time. But yeah, it helps a lot of people who are new to sales. Now, if you're a sales bro, like if you're already appreciating the craft of this, right, you might enjoy the stories and some of the things that I talk about, but it probably won't be new information. It's really meant for people that are newer to sales.
Yep, got it. That's great. And it's called Selling from Scratch. And unfortunately, we are out of time. I could talk to you all day, my friend. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Some people are watching this live and some will watch it on a replay, but it'll also get converted to a podcast in a couple of weeks. And for those who cannot see this, could you please tell people how to reach you if they're interested in working with you, finding out about you, buying the book?
Yes, absolutely. So best way to get a hold of me is John at Adapted Growth. It's adapted in the past tense. We've already done it. Also really big on LinkedIn. So I try to post every day. I try to network. I'm always in the mix over there. If you look for John Small Mountain, I pop right up. Don't look for John Hill because you're going to find 1,001 of us. But those are the two best ways, right? The book is on Amazon. It's also on Audible if you want to go check it out. And then Founders Growth is a YouTube show currently. So I'm interviewing founders, talking about their path, what they've learned along the way. And that's a separate YouTube channel we release on Thursdays.
Gotcha. And there's a QR code on the screen. What's that for?
QR code is going to take you to, that's a great question.
It says sign up for show highlights.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, yeah, so the QR code is going to take you to the sign up for the show, because what we do with the show is we take the clips, the most important things for founders, and we clip those out and put them into an email newsletter, because most of the episodes are like an hour or more, and a lot of people don't have that kind of time. So the newsletter gets you the tips directly in your inbox and saves you some time.
Got it. Fantastic. Well, John, again, I could talk to you all day long, and I'd be happy to anytime you'd like, and you're welcome back anytime you'd like to come. But we are out of time, so thank you for sharing your brilliance so generously. And I will end as I always do, gang. Please remember, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, John. Thanks again.
Thank you.